Daniel Greyhawk had been traveling across the hot desert for many days. The sun was bright and heavy in the sky, and the air felt like it was burning every breath he took. His horse, a calm brown mare named Willow, carried him as far as she could. But late one afternoon, when the wind stopped and the heat rose like fire from the ground, Willow stumbled. Daniel quickly jumped down and tried to help her stand. He whispered to her, rubbed her neck gently, and looked around for any sign of water or shade. But the desert stretched out in every direction like a giant golden ocean. Willow tried to take another step but fell to her knees, and Daniel knew she was too exhausted to continue. He stayed with her for a long moment, feeling the ache of worry in his chest. He could not leave her. But he also knew that if he stayed in the same place without shelter, they would both be in danger. He looked at her tired eyes and felt sorry. He had traveled with Willow for years, and she had never failed him. Now he had to protect himself and hope he could return for her later. With a heavy heart, Daniel took only a small bag of supplies, a water pouch that was already too light, and a worn map. He touched Willow's forehead one more time, promised he would come back, and began walking toward the distant hills. He did not know exactly where he was going, but he had seen smoke earlier that morning, thin, rising in slow lines. Smoke meant people, and people meant hope. He walked for hours. His legs felt weak, and the desert seemed endless. The dust stuck to his clothes. His lips felt dry and cracked, and every step seemed harder than the last. Just when he thought he would have to stop and rest, he noticed something different in the distance. There were shapes small at first, but becoming clearer as he moved closer. Huts made of wood and earth. Fences. People walking slowly around fires. His heart lifted. A settlement. Daniel gathered the last of his strength and walked toward it. As he entered the outer edge, he noticed that the people were not strangers to the desert. They moved with calm confidence and gentle purpose. He could see the colors of their clothes, rich browns, soft reds, deep blues, and he heard the quiet sounds of cooking, talking, and children laughing somewhere far inside the settlement. Before he could take another step, a small group approached him. They were cautious, watching him carefully. They did not look angry or threatening, but they were alert, their eyes steady and sharp. At their front was an older man, with long black hair, tied back with a leather cord. His face was weathered by years of sun and wind, but his eyes were wise and steady. The man raised his hand slightly, signaling Daniel to stop. "You have traveled far," the elder said in a calm but firm voice. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes. My horse collapsed. I have very little water left. I mean no harm. I only seek help." The elder studied him for a moment, then looked at the people behind him. A silent understanding passed between them. Then, the elder spoke again. "You have reached the land of the White Oak Apache. We welcome guests, but we also follow our old customs. You must understand this before we offer shelter." Daniel felt nervous but hopeful. "Please tell me the custom. I want to respect your people." The elder nodded approvingly. "A guest in our village must show kindness and good spirit. We have a tradition that a visitor must delight the women of the tribe." Daniel blinked, unsure of what the phrase meant. The elder continued, noticing his confusion. "It does not mean anything strange or improper. It means you must show respect, bring goodwill, and honor our women, those who guide our families, protect our children, and keep the heart of our community strong. A guest may offer stories, help with tasks, or share knowledge. Anything honest that shows your good spirit." Daniel felt relief wash over him. "I can do that. I will try my best." The elder's expression softened. "Good, but first you must regain your strength." Two younger men stepped forward, offering Daniel a drink of cool water. He accepted gratefully, letting the refreshing liquid soothe his dry throat. They then guided him into the center of the settlement, where he saw a large open area shaded by wooden structures and cloth covers. A fire crackled gently nearby. As Daniel entered, the women of the tribe noticed him. Some paused in their work, others continued weaving, cooking, or preparing herbs, but all watched him with quiet curiosity. They did not seem fearful or unfriendly, just thoughtful, as if studying a puzzle that had just been set before them. One woman stepped forward. She appeared to be in her middle years, with long, dark hair braided with small beads. Her eyes were kind but sharp, showing both warmth and strength. Daniel guessed she held an important role among them. "I am Naisha," she said, her voice calm. "I help guide the women of this tribe. You are welcome here, but you must prove that you come with an open heart. It is our way." Daniel bowed his head slightly in respect. "I understand. Thank you for allowing me to stay." Naisha nodded. "You look tired. Rest, and when you are ready, we will see what gifts of spirit you carry." Daniel was shown to a quiet place near one of the huts where he could sit and rest. A young girl brought him a bowl of warm food, simple, but delicious and comforting. As he ate, he watched the life of the settlement unfold around him. Children played near the edge of the clearing, their laughter light and warm. Women sat together, weaving patterns into cloth or preparing food. Men returned from gathering wood and water, speaking in soft, steady voices. The way they moved, the way they spoke, the way each person seemed to understand their role, it all felt harmonious. Daniel had seen many towns and villages in his travels, but none felt quite like this. There was a peaceful rhythm here, as if everyone was part of the same heartbeat. When he finished eating, he felt stronger, though still tired. He leaned back, letting the soft breeze brush against him. He thought about the elder's words, "Delight the women." It was an unusual phrase, but now he understood it in a deeper way. These women were not simply caretakers or background figures. They were leaders, teachers, and the core of the tribe's strength. To delight them meant to honor their wisdom, help their daily work, and show that he could be a person of trust. As he rested, Naisha approached again. She sat down a short distance away, giving him space but showing she was ready to speak. "You seem thoughtful," she said. Daniel smiled lightly. "I'm thinking about how I can give something good to your people. I don't want to make mistakes." Naisha's eyes warmed. "Mistakes are not feared here. Only a closed heart is feared. If you listen and learn, you will understand what is needed." Daniel appreciated her words. He felt himself relax. The fear he had carried, fear of being rejected or misunderstood, began to fade. Naisha continued, "Tomorrow, some of the women will speak to you. Each may ask something different. It is not a test. It is a path to understanding. If you walk it honestly, you will be welcomed." Daniel nodded. "I am ready to do my best." Naisha stood up gracefully. "Good. Rest now. Your journey has been long, but your new journey begins tomorrow." As she walked away, Daniel watched the last of the evening light fade behind the distant hills. The sky turned soft shades of pink and orange, and the village grew quiet. He felt grateful, hopeful, and curious about the days to come. He had arrived as a tired stranger in the desert. Now, he was a guest with a chance to prove himself through kindness, respect, and simple acts of goodness. And deep inside, he hoped he would be worthy of the trust this tribe was willing to offer. Daniel woke up the next morning feeling stronger than he had in days. The soft ground beneath him, covered with woven blankets, felt warm, and the early morning air carried the gentle smell of wood smoke and herbs. When he stepped outside the small shelter he had slept in, the village was already awake. People moved quietly, beginning their day with calm purpose. The sun was low, the sky still painted with soft colors, and a cool breeze brushed across his face. He watched the women of the tribe as they worked. Some were tending to the fire pits, others prepared food, and a few spoke with children, guiding them gently with smiles and patience. Everything they did seemed filled with intention and meaning. Daniel realized he had never seen a community so well balanced. Every person, whether young or old, seemed to play an important role. As he stood there, Naisha approached with a warm smile. "You look rested," she said. "Yes," Daniel replied. "Thank you for allowing me to stay last night." "You are a guest," she answered simply. "And now your time begins. Today, you will meet many women of the tribe. They wish to understand you, and they will invite you to understand them." Daniel felt both curious and nervous, but he nodded with respect. Naishe led him to the central area of the settlement, where several women stood waiting. Each one looked different, not only in age, but in the quiet strength they carried. Some were young, others older, but all had an air of confidence that Daniel admired. The first woman to step forward was tall, with strong shoulders and eyes that watched everything around her. She held a small bundle of herbs in her hand and wore a necklace made of colored stones. Daniel guessed she was a healer. "My name is Tallulah," she said with a kind but serious voice. "I care for the health of our people. If someone is hurt or sick, they come to me." Daniel listened closely. Tallulah continued, "I want you to help me gather fresh herbs today. It will show me your patience and your respect for the land." Daniel agreed without hesitation, and Tallulah led him beyond the village, where small plants grew near a shallow stream. The ground here was cooler, and Daniel felt relieved to move away from the hotter areas. Tallulah moved gently between the plants, touching each one carefully, as if greeting an old friend. "These herbs help with fevers," she explained. "These help with pain. Every plant has a purpose." Daniel bent down beside her and copied her movements. He learned quickly, and Tallulah watched him with thoughtful eyes. She noticed how he handled each plant gently, taking only what was needed. "You have a calm hand," she said. "That is good." They worked together for nearly an hour, gathering what the village needed. When they returned, Tallulah nodded with approval. "You have shown patience. That is one way you honor the people here." Daniel thanked her, feeling grateful that he had passed her quiet test. Next, a younger woman approached. She had bright eyes, a soft laugh, and a playful energy that reminded Daniel of spring wind. She carried a bundle of sticks in her arms. "I am Kiona," she said cheerfully. "I gather firewood for cooking and warmth. But sometimes, I make mistakes and gather pieces that are too heavy or too wet. Today, you will help me choose the right ones." Daniel smiled at her lively spirit and followed her toward the tree line where fallen branches lay scattered. She tossed a stick toward him playfully. "That one is too wet," she said before he could pick it up. "Feel it." Daniel bent down to lift the stick and was surprised by how damp it was. Kiona laughed, and her laughter was light and musical. "You have to listen to the wood," she said. "Not with your ears, but with your hands. Try again." Daniel looked around and picked up another piece. This time it felt dry, with a hollow sound when he tapped it lightly. Kiona nodded approvingly. "Yes, that is good. See, you learn fast." They gathered wood together until their arms were full. Daniel enjoyed her company, and her positive energy made the task fun. When they returned to the central area, Kiona grinned and said, "You helped me well." Daniel appreciated her words deeply. Even small tasks here felt meaningful. Soon after, an older woman stepped forward. She walked with a slow but steady stride, and her eyes carried deep wisdom. Daniel felt a quiet respect rise within him, even before she spoke. "My name is Apache," she said. "I teach the younger ones how to settle disagreements peacefully. Sometimes, they argue. That is natural. Today, I want you to listen." Daniel followed her to an open area where two young boys were arguing about a small carved wooden toy. Their frustration was clear, but they did not shout. They simply spoke over each other. Apache listened first, then asked Daniel, "Tell me, what do you hear?" Daniel paused. He didn't want to judge too quickly. He thought about what each boy had said. "I think they both care about the same toy," he said slowly. "But each one feels it belongs to him. Maybe the toy is important because someone they love made it." Apache's eyes softened. "Good. You listen with more than your ears. Now speak to them gently." Daniel crouched down beside the boys and asked them questions, letting each speak in turn. Then he offered a simple solution. They could take turns with the toy. The boys thought for a moment, then agreed. Their faces relaxed. A pony placed her hand on Daniel's shoulder. You understand fairness. This is important. You have shown me your heart. Daniel felt warm pride grow within him. He did not expect to be tested in such personal ways, but he found meaning in each moment. As the day continued, more women came to him. One asked him to share stories from his homeland. Another asked him to help repair a small shelter. Another wanted to hear about the maps Daniel carried and the places he had traveled. Each task revealed something about him: his patience, his creativity, his kindness, his honesty. And each woman seemed to look deeper, not just at his words, but at who he was as a person. By the time the sun began to sink behind the hills, Daniel felt tired but fulfilled. He returned to the central camp, where Naiche waited. How do you feel? She asked softly. Tired, Daniel admitted with a smile, but in a good way. Naisha nodded. The women have watched you carefully today. You have shown respect, honesty, and a willingness to learn. That is the beginning of what our custom asks. Daniel sat down near the fire. A warm bowl of food was placed into his hands, and he ate slowly. He noticed that people now looked at him differently, not with caution, but with quiet acceptance. Some even smiled. As darkness settled over the village, Daniel felt a deep peace he had not felt in years. He had come here hoping only for safety and water. But now he felt something deeper: growing connection, trust, and perhaps even purpose. He had begun to understand the meaning behind the ancient custom. It was not about grand actions or impressing anyone. It was about being open, helpful, and sincere. It was about listening. It was about being part of something bigger than himself. As he lay down to rest that evening, the stars shining brightly above the village, Daniel felt a strong sense of gratitude. The tribe had given him a chance, and he was determined to honor that gift with everything he had. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, and new chances to show the true spirit of his heart. And he was ready. Daniel woke up early the next morning with a strange but pleasant feeling. He felt as if a soft thread connected him to the village now, something gentle and invisible but very real. When he stepped outside, the sky was still gray, slowly turning blue as the sun prepared to rise. The air smelled of earth and cool morning wind. He stretched his tired muscles and smiled to himself. Yesterday had been long, but it had also shown him something he had forgotten for many years: the comfort of being part of a community. Even though he was still a guest, he felt a quiet sense of belonging forming slowly within him. As he walked toward the center of the village, he saw Naiche already awake, sorting through a basket of woven cloth. She looked up and gave him a warm, approving smile. You came early, she said. Daniel nodded. I want to help again today. I want to continue learning. You will. Naiche replied gently. Today, the women will not simply test you. They will show you things about yourself that even you may not know. Daniel wondered what she meant, but before he could ask, another woman stepped forward. She was older, with silver streaks in her braided hair, and her steps were slow but steady. Her expression held years of wisdom. I am Kai, she said kindly. I guide our people when we travel or search for something. Today, I want to see how well you understand the land. Will you walk with me? Daniel agreed with a respectful nod, and Kai led him down a narrow path that wound between small bushes and flat, sandy ground. The air grew warmer as the sun rose higher, but Kai continued walking, calm and unhurried. As they traveled, she spoke softly. Many people see the desert as empty or harsh, but those who watch closely see that it speaks. The land tells us things: where water is, where food grows, where danger rests. Today, I want you to listen to the land. Daniel took a slow breath. He had spent years traveling through different terrains: forests, rivers, mountains, and plains, but the desert was still a mystery to him. He followed Kai carefully, watching her movements. Kai stopped near a patch of dry grass. Tell me, what do you see? Daniel looked closely. At first, he only saw thin, brittle grass. But as he studied it longer, he noticed the ground beneath was slightly darker, as if it had held moisture recently. He also noticed small tracks, almost invisible. I think something drinks water here, Daniel said slowly. Maybe animals pass by? Kai's eyes brightened with approval. Good. The land whispers. But you hear it. The tracks belong to small deer. They come here in the early morning. And the darker soil means water is not far under the surface. They walked a little more until they reached a cluster of smooth stones. Kai pointed at them. What do these stones tell you? Daniel crouched down. The stones were warm on one side but cool underneath. A few were slightly wet. He thought for a moment, then answered, Maybe water flows here sometimes? Maybe after rain? Yes, Kai said with a proud smile. When clouds gather over the far hills, the water travels here. It comes quickly and leaves quickly. You understand the land better than you think. Her words filled Daniel with quiet pride. He had always relied on instinct while traveling, but having someone recognize that brought him unexpected comfort. After returning to the village, Kai nodded toward Neche. He listens. That is a gift, she said before walking away. Naisha smiled at Daniel. You are doing well. Before Daniel could respond, another woman approached. She was young, with dark hair tied back in a simple knot. She held a stack of wooden pieces, shaped carefully with smooth edges. I am Oneida, she said warmly. I craft toys and tools. Today, I want to see your hands at work. Will you help me carve something? Daniel had never been skilled at carving, but he agreed. Onata led him to a shaded area near the edge of the village. She handed him a small knife and a block of soft wood. Do not rush, she said. Carving is not about speed. It is about patience. Daniel began shaping the wood slowly. At first, his cuts were uneven, and the wood chipped in small pieces. Onata watched quietly, offering guidance whenever needed. Hold the knife like this, she instructed gently. Let it glide, not dig. Let it glide. Daniel followed her advice and noticed the difference immediately. The knife moved more smoothly, making the shape more natural. What are we making? He asked. A small bird, she replied with a smile. A symbol of hope and clarity. When someone is troubled, I give them a wooden bird so they remember to look for calm. Daniel felt touched by the meaning behind the carving. He concentrated more deeply, shaping the wings and smoothing the edges. It took time, but slowly, the rough block became something that resembled a bird. Onata took the carved figure from him and studied it. It is not perfect, she said honestly. But it has heart. That is what matters. You carve with care, not pride. That shows your spirit. Daniel felt a warm rush of gratitude. He realized that the women were not seeking perfection, they were looking for sincerity. As the day went on, another woman stepped forward. She was soft-spoken, with gentle eyes. Daniel recognized her from the day before. She had been weaving cloth with bright patterns. My name is Amma, she said. Yesterday you saw me weaving. Today, you will try it. Daniel blinked in surprise. I have never woven anything before. Then this will be new for you, Amma said softly. Sit beside me. Daniel sat and watched as Amma moved the strands of thread with graceful, practiced fingers. The colors blended like flowing water, forming patterns that looked almost magical. When it was his turn, he fumbled at first. The strands tangled, and he felt embarrassed. Amma laughed gently. Do not worry, the cloth will teach you. She helped untangle the threads and guided his hands. Slowly, Daniel began to understand the rhythm. Up, down, pull, tighten, up, down, pull, tighten. The motions created a calm and steady beat, like breathing. After a long while, Daniel stepped back and saw the small section he had woven. It wasn't perfect, but it held together, colorful and sturdy. Amma nodded with pride. That is good. You stayed patient. Many people grow frustrated, but you did not. Daniel felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. Each task he had been given taught him something new about the tribe, about their customs, and about himself. Later in the afternoon, Kiona, the cheerful woman from the day before, approached him again. She had a playful smile on her face. "Now it is time for something fun," she announced. "You will join us in a game." Daniel felt his shoulders relax. He had been working hard all morning, and something light-hearted sounded refreshing. The game involved tossing small rings onto wooden pegs from a distance. It looked simple, but Daniel quickly learned that it required skill. The women laughed and cheered whenever someone succeeded, and even when someone missed, the atmosphere remained joyful. Kiona handed Daniel a set of rings. "Let's see what you can do." Daniel threw the first ring and missed completely. Kiona laughed so hard she nearly fell over. "Try again," she encouraged. His second throw landed closer. His third throw actually hit the peg but bounced off. When his fourth throw finally landed perfectly, the women clapped and cheered, and Daniel laughed with them. He had not laughed like that in a long time. By the time the sun began setting, Daniel had spoken with many women, helped with tasks, learned new skills, and even laughed more than he expected. He returned to the center of the village where Naishe waited, watching him with a thoughtful expression. "You learned much today," she said softly. Daniel nodded. "More than I expected. You also showed courage," she added. "Not the kind used for danger, but the courage to try, to fail, to learn, and to listen. That courage is rare." Daniel felt a deep warmth inside him. The tribe was not testing his strength or power, they were testing his character, his heart, his willingness to join them in spirit. As the sky darkened and stars filled the night, Daniel realized he had begun to change. Not by force, but by peaceful guidance. The tribe's way of life was teaching him patience, humility, and connection. He lay down to rest with a full heart, knowing tomorrow would bring new challenges and deeper understanding. He was no longer just a passing traveler. Daniel woke to the sound of soft voices and the gentle crackle of morning fire. The village was already alive with activity, and the warm scent of cooking filled the air. He stretched slowly, feeling the pleasant ache in his arms and legs from the previous day's work. Every task the women had given him had pushed him to learn, observe, and understand more deeply. And strangely, the more he learned, the more he felt connected to this place. As he stepped outside, he saw children running across the open space, laughing and chasing each other with thin sticks decorated with feathers. The sky was bright and cloudless, and the early light painted everything in golden tones. Daniel felt peaceful, almost as if he had woken from a long, comforting dream. Naiche approached him with a soft smile. "Today will be different," she said. "You have already shown your willingness to help. Now, we will see how you act when something important needs you." Daniel nodded, curious but unsure what she meant. Before he could ask, several women gathered around Naiche. They spoke quietly among themselves, and Daniel could sense something serious in their expressions. Soon, Kiona, the cheerful young woman, hurried toward them with a slightly worried look. "Smoke," she said quickly. "Not from our fires." Everyone turned to look toward the distant hills. A thin, pale cloud of smoke rose slowly into the sky. It was far away, not threatening the village directly, but it was enough to raise concern. Naishe looked at Daniel. "Sometimes, the land tests us. That smoke is from a dry field our people use for grazing animals. We must go and see what has happened." Daniel felt a twist of worry in his stomach. He didn't know what he could do, but he nodded and followed them. A few of the men also prepared to join, carrying tools for clearing brush and protecting the animals. The women did not hesitate. They collected blankets, baskets, and small water containers. As they walked toward the hills, Daniel noticed that the air grew warmer. The grass rustled softly under their feet, and the wind carried the faint smell of dry earth. Kiona walked beside him, her usually bright face more serious than before. "Fires happen sometimes," she said quietly. "The land is dry, but we must check quickly. The animals depend on us." Daniel nodded. He could feel her worry, and it unsettled him. He wanted to help, even if he didn't yet know how. When they reached the grazing area, Daniel saw a small patch of grass still carrying wisps of smoke. The fire had been very small and had mostly burned itself out, but the danger was that it might return if the wind changed or if more dry grass caught fire. A small group of goats stood nearby, nervous and scattered. Some had wandered too close to the burned area, but none were harmed. Still, they needed to be gathered before they strayed farther. The women moved quickly. Tallulah, the healer, checked the ground carefully to make sure the fire was completely gone. Kiona and Onata began calling to the goats, using soft, rhythmic sounds that the animals seemed to recognize. Daniel watched for a moment, then stepped forward. He noticed one of the smaller goats wandering farther away toward a dry bush. Its legs were trembling slightly. Daniel moved slowly toward it, keeping his steps light so he wouldn't frighten the animal. The goat hesitated, then stepped back. Daniel lowered himself to the ground slightly, making himself seem less threatening. He extended his hand gently. "It's all right," he whispered, even though the goat couldn't understand his words. He spoke softly anyway, trying to calm it. After a moment, the goat stopped shaking. Daniel reached out and touched its side gently, guiding it back toward the group. When the goat joined the others, Kiona gave Daniel a surprised but grateful smile. "You're good with them," she said. "I've traveled with animals my whole life," Daniel replied. "They trust calm hands." The wind blew suddenly, carrying the smoke in a new direction. Tallulah looked up sharply. "We must clear the dry brush," she said. "If the fire catches again, it could spread." Daniel understood immediately. He grabbed a long branch and began sweeping away the dry grass and leaves. Others joined him, gathering debris and moving it to safer ground. It wasn't difficult work, but it required speed and focus. The women worked as smoothly as a single team, each one knowing exactly what to do. Daniel followed their rhythm, copying their movements and listening to their instructions. Sweat formed on his forehead, but he didn't slow down. He felt driven by a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. After some time, Tallulah checked the ground again. The smoke had faded completely, and the area was safe. Relief washed across everyone's faces. Kiona let out a long breath and laughed softly. "We were lucky," she said. "The fire was small." "Luck helps," Naisha replied gently, "but so does action." Daniel smiled. He didn't feel like a hero or anything close to one. He simply felt grateful that he had been able to help. They gathered the goats and began guiding them toward a greener part of the grazing field. Daniel walked beside Onata, who carried a small goat that couldn't walk quickly. "You did well," she told him. "You acted without fear." Daniel shook his head. "I wasn't fearless. I was worried. I just didn't want anyone, man, woman, or animal, to be harmed." "That is what bravery is," Onata said. "Not the absence of fear, but choosing to help anyway." Her words warmed him more than the sun ever could. When they returned to the village, several people came to greet them. The elder approached Daniel directly, his eyes filled with quiet approval. "We heard what you did," the elder said. "The women say you helped keep the land safe today." Daniel felt himself blush slightly. "I did only what anyone would do." "Not everyone would," the elder replied. "You acted with care. You acted with respect. You acted as one of us would." Daniel felt the weight of those words. Something settled inside him, a sense of belonging that he hadn't expected. Naisha stepped beside Daniel, placing her hand gently on his shoulder. "In our custom," she said softly, "to delight the women means to bring peace, safety, honor, and kindness. Today, you did that." Daniel felt a deep, steady warmth spread through his chest. He did not feel pride in a loud way. Instead, he felt a quiet, steady satisfaction. That evening, the whole village gathered for a simple but warm meal. Children laughed, women shared stories, and men returned from their work with relaxed faces. Lanterns hung from wooden frames, casting soft golden light across the gathering. Kiona sat beside Daniel and nudged him playfully. You should have seen your face when that goat looked like it was going to run. You were so serious." Daniel laughed. "I thought it might bolt. But it didn't," she said with a grin. "Because you stayed calm. Onata joined them. The goat trusted you. That says something." Sint, Tallulah passed by with a bowl of warm stew and added, "You were steady in your actions." We noticed. Daniel felt surrounded by warmth, not only the warmth of the fire, but the warmth of acceptance. The women spoke to him like he was one of their own. Someone they trusted. This feeling was new, but it felt right. As night settled over the village, Daniel gazed at the star-filled sky. The stars shone brightly, like small pieces of light woven into a dark cloth. The peaceful sounds of the village grew softer as people finished their meals and settled into their homes. Daniel felt a sense of connection he had been searching for without even realizing it. He had come to this place as a weary traveler, lost in the desert. Now he felt like he had a purpose, a place where he could do good, be useful, and be welcomed. He lay down to rest with a full heart, understanding that he had taken another step on this path with the tribe. Tomorrow would bring new lessons, and he was ready to meet them with an open spirit. The morning of Daniel's final day in the village began with a calm stillness. The sky was soft and pale, touched with early pink and gold from the rising sun. The quiet breeze carried the gentle smell of smoke from the cooking fires, and distant laughter of children floated through the air. Daniel sat outside his shelter, watching the village slowly wake up, and he felt a mixture of peace and sadness settle in his heart. He knew it was time for him to move on. His horse Willow still waited somewhere in the desert, and he felt responsible for returning to her. Yet leaving the village felt harder than he expected. He had arrived as a stranger, tired and desperate. But now he felt connected to the people in a way he had not experienced for many years. As he sat quietly, Naisha approached with her usual calm presence. She stood beside him for a moment before speaking. "You sense the day is different," she said softly. Daniel nodded. "Yes. I feel everything is changing." Naisha smiled gently. "Change is part of life. But before you go, the women wish to speak with you." Daniel's heart tightened slightly. He stood and followed her toward the center of the village. The women he had met, Tallulah, Kiona, Aponi, Onata, Amma, and Kai, all stood waiting, along with several others he had seen working in the village, but had not spoken with directly. The elder and a few men stood further back, watching quietly and respectfully. Daniel realized this moment was important. Naisha stepped forward as the women formed a circle around Daniel. Her voice carried the soft strength that always guided the tribe. "You have walked among us for several days," she said. "You have listened, learned, helped, and shown your true spirit. We have watched not only what you did with your hands, but also what you carried in your heart." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He had tried to give his best, not to impress them, but because he genuinely respected their way of life. Tallulah, the healer, stepped closer. "You showed patience when gathering herbs," she said, "not rushing, not harming the plants. You respected the land. That is a gift of healing, even if you do not see it." Onata spoke next. She held a small piece of wood in her hand, the little wooden bird Daniel had carved with her. "This is imperfect," she said lovingly. "But it is full of care. You carved it with intention, not pride. That shows a gentle heart." Kiona smiled brightly. "You helped me gather wood and made the work fun. You treated even the smallest tasks with value. That shows joy." Amma, the weaver, added softly, "You learned to weave with patience and humility. Even when the threads tangled, you did not grow angry. That shows peace." Aponi stepped forward, leaning slightly on her wooden walking stick. "You listened to the children," she said. "You helped them understand fairness without judgment. That shows wisdom." Kai, who had walked with him across the land, nodded slowly. "You understood the desert even before I explained it. You watched the sky, the earth, the tracks. You listened to what the land whispered. That shows awareness." One by one, each woman offered her words, each small but meaningful. Daniel listened, his heart swelling with emotion. He had never imagined that simple acts, helping, learning, listening, had touched them so deeply. Finally, Nisha spoke again. In our custom, to delight the women means to bring good spirit, kindness, safety, respect, and warmth to our lives. It means to walk among us with an open heart. You have done this, Daniel Greyhawk. Her eyes held compassion and pride. You have delighted us not with grand actions but with simple honesty. Daniel lowered his head respectfully. He felt overwhelmed, not by pride, but by gratitude. He had not expected recognition. He only wanted to be helpful and worthy of the trust they had given him. The elder then stepped closer, carrying a small handcrafted bundle wrapped in soft cloth. He placed it gently in Daniel's hands. This is a token of our friendship, the elder said. Inside is something made by all the women together. Carry it with you as a reminder that you walk with our blessings. Daniel opened the cloth carefully. Inside was a beautifully woven bracelet, made of colorful threads and tiny beads. The colors were soft earth tones, like the village itself, warm browns, gentle reds, soft blues, and golds, like the morning sun. Each bead seemed to reflect a piece of the women's spirit. This is beautiful, Daniel said, his voice thick. I don't know how to thank you. See, a gentle laugh rose from Kiona. You already thanked us, she said. Every day you were here, Neishe nodded. We ask for nothing more. Daniel tied the bracelet around his wrist with care, feeling its warmth immediately. It wasn't made of gold or valuable stones, but it meant more to him than anything he had carried before. He looked around at the faces of the women, strong, wise, kind, and felt an ache in his heart. I will not forget this place, he said softly. Or any of you. A pony stepped forward. And we will not forget you, she replied. Your spirit will always be welcome here. After the gathering, the village prepared a simple farewell meal. People shared stories and laughter. Children played near Daniel, showing him small toys and asking him to tell stories from faraway places. He shared gentle tales of forests, rivers, and mountains he had seen. And the children listened with wide eyes. As the sun sank low, painting the sky with warm colors, Daniel finally knew it was time to leave. The village stood gathered near the edge as he prepared to walk back toward the desert, where he hoped to find Willow. Kiona handed him a small sack of food. For your journey, she said with a smile. Tallulah gave him a small pouch of herbs. For your health. Onata pressed the wooden bird gently into his hand, to remind you of calm. Amma wrapped a cloth around his shoulders. To keep you warm at night. A pony squeezed his arm gently. To remind you to stay fair and patient. Kai pointed toward the hills. Follow the land. It will guide you. Neisha stood last. She placed her hand softly on his shoulder. Walk safely, Daniel Greyhawk, she said. Wherever you go, walk with the same open spirit you showed us. That will always lead you where you belong. Daniel swallowed hard, blinking back the emotion that rose inside him. Thank you, he whispered, for everything. He took a slow step forward, then another. He looked back once more. The village glowed softly in the evening light, peaceful and strong, just as it had been the day he arrived, but now it felt like a part of him. As he walked farther, the sounds of the village grew faint. The sky grew darker, stars beginning to appear one by one. The bracelet on his wrist caught the last light of the sun, sparkling gently. For the first time in a long time, Daniel felt his path clearly. He had come to the village as a lost traveler. He left as someone changed, someone stronger, kinder, and fuller of spirit. He carried with him the lessons of the tribe, the warmth of the women who had guided him, and the peaceful strength of a community that had welcomed him, not just as a guest, but as a friend. And as the night deepened, Daniel walked forward with steady steps, knowing that he would carry this memory for the rest of his life.